Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about lap booking and notebooking and what's the difference between the two and how do you know which option you should select when homeschooling or after schooling. I think both methods are awesome, but I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, again, what they are and how to determine which method is best for you and your child. So let's get to it. So what is notebooking? Notebooking is basically a workbook that your child produces through or works on throughout the matriculation of the year. It's normally used for subjects, any subject, from math to science to history to enrichment, to writing, to Bible. It can be used for any subject, and it basically documents what your child is learning. I'm also going to look at some notes that I wrote down for myself because I didn't want to miss any information. It's also a method of communication between you and the child. So let's say you're teaching your child a particular concept. Based on how they are understanding that concept, based on how they are processing the information that you're presenting to them, they're going to document that within their notebook. Of course, depending on age, you can assist your child in documenting what is being taught, right? So that they can use it to recall or review information. But it's a good idea to allow your child to document their thought processes the best way that they deem feasible. Because if you allow your child to notebook themselves, it may not be perfect, it may not be as clean or as meticulous as you may want it to be, but because they're using, kinesthetic, they're using their hands, they're visually looking at the information, they're processing the information, it allows them to soak in all the information that they're learning and allows them to remember what they have put down on that paper. Notebooking also enhances your children's writing abilities.
Here, Mom.
Oh, thank you. Okay, give me 1 second, guys. So when I say that notebooking also helps with your child's writing skills, I specifically mean since notebooking is very highly text-oriented, it does two things. One, it allows your child to practice their penmanship, right? And secondly, it enhances their writing ability, the writing skills and abilities, because they have to interpret what they're hearing and put that information in their own words. So that again, when they go back to it for the purpose of studying or reviewing or recalling information, they're able to clearly ascertain what they wrote and they can use that information to perform a future problem or a future activity or a future tasking. Now, if your child is younger, when I say younger, I mean maybe second grade or even third grade and below, you may want to narrate to your child what you want them to write in their notebook if you are even allowing them to notebook at such a young age. So again, if they're younger, you can narrate what you want them to write and have them write that. You can do the notebook for them. Maybe you can do all the text for them, and then they are maybe cutting and pasting or taping the illustrations or images within the notebook to complement the text portion, okay? Along with notebooking, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Along with notebooking, you can also use it for class notes. My son is currently in the 5th grade, and at this time we've started formal note-taking skills and study habits and things of that nature. So while I am lecturing or he's watching a lecture or he's reading a textbook, he is, depending on the topic at hand or the subject, he is required to write notes. We do use the Cornell method of note writing. So then he'll use his note-taking notebook to document how he's processing the information. And he also puts drawings or illustrations within the notebook to complement the text in order for him to have a visual picture of what the text is really saying. So we use notebooking for note-taking as well. And again, notebooking also allows your child to be creative and express their ideas in a way that, best suits them. So notebooking, like I said earlier, it's great for studying, reviewing, and it's a great way for evaluating your child, right? So instead of having tests or quizzes as an example, you may have them document what they're learning for a particular subject, and then you may use that notebook as a method to evaluate whether or not they understood a particular topic. Yes?
Football.
We're not going to watch football right now. She watches football during football season with my husband, and now she wants me to put on a football game. Okay. But, so, let's summarize. Notebooking is basically a record of learning. It creates good writing skills. It creates good study habits, good note-taking, allows the child to illustrate or draw out a concept or idea rather than always, putting it in text. It allows them to do that. And it can be used for any subject. You can do it for poetry, cartoon drawing, figure drawing, stories, songs. Again, it can be used for anything. It's also a great way to divide information and to also chunk information for the purpose of learning, right? And it's, again, another way to narrate or to put into text what the child is learning with drawings and illustrations. And again, it just allows your child to be creative rather than using worksheets or textbooks all the time as a method of learning. It's also really good for science. And the reason why it's good for science is because science is all about experimentation, gathering information, analyzing the data, summarizing the data. So it's really good for science as well if your child is doing those types of things within their science curriculum. And it also, again, provides a reference. It also is a reference guide for your child. So I'm going to show you a few examples of how we notebook. We've been notebooking ever since our after-schooling journey. So these notebooks began in the 3rd grade. And since we're after schooling, if he was learning something in school, whether or not he got the concept or not, I would have him notebook through the concept rather than doing a worksheet. So to be interactive, we would play a game, or I would have him notebook through the concept. So, and we're still using these in the 5th grade. When he goes to the 6th grade, these pages should be done within these notebooks here, and we will go ahead and start a middle school notebook at that time. So for science, we use a spiral notebook, and notebooking can come in so many different options. You can use a spiral notebook, a composition book, you can even use a binder. It's totally up to you how you choose to do it. Okay, so spiral notebook, I put a little cover page on here. I just laminated the page and taped it on here. Okay, in all of our notebooks, we always keep a table of contents. So I always have him write the topic. So the subject is science. Okay, I have him write the topic and the page number. So when we learned about energy, types of energy, this is the notebook, the text, and this is the visual that accompanies the text. I normally like to have visuals with everything, and the visuals continued. We had a little game here, and we have some more visuals. Okay, let me go to another page. We're learning about botany. So here's one we did on botany, the title, the page number, page 7, and here's what we did here. We continued with the plant cycle here. We actually did an experiment on this, and that's coming up. Here's another topic here, roots and germination. And we did we talked about the plant life cycle. You know, have some cutouts here. And we did an actual experiment where he had to document what happened. So when we did the experiment, again, this served as his project notebook for the experiment, where he documented his observations during each stage. And then as we did the experiment, we took pictures and printed them out to accompany what he documented. So this was day 1. This is what happens, what it looked like on a different day. So again, I really think using a notebook for science is awesome. We talked about the nervous system, page 11. And you can do your notebook, you know, any kind of way that you desire. Okay? We talked about colors and Roy G. Biv.
Mommy, I opened it.
Good. Oh no, don't open that, please. We talked about types of light and energy. We talked about the law of conservation, again, title and page number. This is about how the human eye sees. The text that goes along with that. We talked about fiber optics. This is a drawing that he did to show if he had to examine someone's stomach, how would we do that, and how we use fiber optics and a camera attached to the fiber optic, and where the light comes from. When you turn on the light, why does it go through the fiber optic, and how you can examine if you were a doctor. We talked about that. And then we, you know, just give them a little thing to paste to understand what they were. We talked about the water cycle. This was just a worksheet. So instead of taking the worksheet and throwing it away, we had him cut and paste the water cycle in order, and then he had to, on the back in text, explain in his own words what the water cycle was all about. So that's how we did our science. Okay. So again, we do not notebook through every single topic. I pick and choose what I want to notebook on based on his interest level. Okay. Here is one for social studies, which at this time included economics, geography, government, and history. And again, we have table of contents. We have, you know, the continents. Talked about that a long time ago. Had a little image to go with it. We talked about the Bill of Rights and certain amendments. We talked about certain states and facts about certain states, and again, facts about the continents. We talked about longitude and latitude here. We talked about the time zones. Okay, just a little peek into everything that is included in social studies. When we did spelling and vocabulary actively in the 3rd and 4th grade, this was normally, we use this for after schooling. So when he came home with a vocabulary list or spelling list, we would use our notebook to practice those things. So we would, I would have him write his list of words. You have to write it in ABC order. He had to then write the words 2 times each, and then I would give him a quiz, and I would grade him. You know, we would also take the words and write the definition and what part of speech they were, write them in sentences, and the ones that he had right, I would leave alone, and the ones that he had wrong in the middle of the week, we would then write sentences and have to rewrite them in ABC order, the ones he had wrong, and things of that nature. So we use this when he after school. Okay. Again, all his words and the parts of speech and things of that nature. Right now, what we are doing with these words, with this book, is for his, right now we're not doing spelling. Spelling will fall into the 2nd semester of 5th grade. We're going to do a, I think it's called Logic of English. We're going to learn the rules of spelling, and we'll probably pick back up on this book, or in this book, to use to document the words that we're using and do some activities. But currently for vocabulary, when I give him a set of vocabulary words, he does have to go into the book, write the vocabulary term and its definition, and then he verbally would give me sentences, and that's how we would practice that. We have one for Bible study, and as you can see, these are composition books that I'm showing you so far. Again, we have a table of contents for everything, okay? And this, you know, we talked about obeying your parents. What does that mean? We talked about creation, and he had to create images that goes along with the text that he wrote, just to ensure that he understood each day. And he should be able to look at the pictures and explain to me orally what happened. Okay. We have the Lord's Prayer. So what I did with that was I just copied the Lord's Prayer, laminated it on the sheet, and then he had to, underneath it, write it in his own words, what he thought that portion of the scripture meant. We also had an interactive game where I put the entire scripture onto a sheet of paper, and then I cut it out, and then he has to put these in order. So he puts the scripture in order. So that's a little activity that we did for that. We talked about prayer. What is prayer? I find these worksheets online, guys. And if I like them, I print them out and I add them to our notebook. Okay. We talked about why do we even study the Bible? What is the Bible? How many books are in the Bible? Okay, we talked about that. And then we had a worksheet on that. The books of the Bible. Here we talked about what is bad association, and he had to draw what that scripture meant to him. We talked about trusting in the Lord, and we talked about the armor of God. Okay, so that's an example of what our notebooking looks like for Bible. We also have one for foreign language. And with foreign language, basically what I'm doing is, again, our table of contents is important and numbering the pages. But, so what I'll do for that, for language arts, not language arts, for foreign language, I'll put on one side the English term, and then on the other side, the foreign language term. Okay, so, and then what we have here on the margins, we have a way to help him memorize how to phonetically pronounce the foreign language term. So we've done that for everything we've gone over thus far. Okay, this one is pretty simple. We have one for writing. In here, we use this during after schooling. Right now we're not utilizing this, but we did this for after schooling, where I have here some prompts, and we would just take these prompts, I numbered them in the back, and then we would just lay them out on the table, and he had to choose a prompt. So let's say he chose number 2. Number 2 says, if I could invent a new toy, what kind of toy would I create and why? So then he would take this card, and he would have to write a story. So let's pretend this was the card. So he would take this card, attach it to here so that we know he did that card, so we don't put it back in the pile so he won't have to do it again. He would have to brainstorm, and then he would have to do a draft, and then we would go over the draft, and then he would have to write the final copy with an illustration. And that final copy with illustration is kept in a separate binder of all his finished writings. Okay, so that was something. So this is a really good idea for, you know, if you after school your kids, you want to help them with their writing, or if you homeschool your kids and you want to help them with their writing, this is a great way to do that. And you can have them come up with a list of writing prompts based on things they're interested in. Type it up, number it in the back, go ahead and create a notebook to do just that with it. We have one for language arts. And again, it's important to have a table of contents, guys. And the reason why it's important is because when you want them to go back and you want them to reference something or use this as their reference guide, they forget a particular way to do something, they can just go to the table of contents, look at the topic. Oh, it's this topic. Oh, it's this page number. And go to it and refresh their memory. Okay. So here, examples. We talked about verbs, different types of verbs, adjectives, synonyms and antonyms, homophone versus homographs. Let me just skip through here. We talked about the different types of sentences, the 4 types of sentences. Everything does not have to be accompanied by an illustration, okay? But I do like to use colors in the notebook. So we'll use different color pens, we'll use highlighters in order to box or highlight the title or information that we don't want to forget, because you want it to be colorful as well, okay? We talked about what is a sentence. We talked about what are fanboys, and he had to create a fan himself. We talked about what fanboys are, and he created a fan. Talked about figurative language. What is figurative language? And then we had a little activity to go with it. Okay. This is our math. You know, this is simple stuff from the 3rd grade, different ways to remember how to do subtraction in this case, how to round. The different type of properties. Talked about measurement. Solid figures. Fractions. 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 Measurements. So as you can see, notebooking is inclusive of so many things. I wrote this one for him. And again, you can write it yourself. You can have them write information. You can, it can be interactive where you both are going to document the information that's being learned. Okay. Finally, on the notebooking, enrichment. And enrichment is like life skills. So from communication to personal finance to character building, negotiation, you know, it's all in here. So we have some, the personal finance one we did, where you had to come up with some goals. We talked about unhappiness reasons, things that make you unhappy. We talked about the pie chart. Pie, if you don't know, P is performance, I is image, E is expectations. And we talked about in life in general, how do we have a balance of a nice pie in our life. We talked about what are SMART goals? How do you set goals for yourself? Here are some of his goals that he had from last year. So we printed it out, checked off what he completed. How do we make a difference in the world? What did he want to do to make a difference in the world? We talked about an invention. He had to come up with 2 inventions. So he came up with 2 inventions here, drew it, and then gave me some information about it. We talked about study skills. What are study skills? We talked about note-taking. How do we note-take? We talked about brainstorming. What is brainstorming and what is outlining? Why do we do that? What's a mind map? We talked about reading comprehension strategies. If we're doing a math problem, how do we comprehend a math problem? If we're doing basic reading, how can we ensure that we understand what we're reading? What are some strategies and tips or mnemonic devices that we can use to help us comprehend what we're reading? So that was a lot, guys. That's how we notebook, and those are some examples of notebooking. One tip I would say, although I like using those one subject normal spiral notebooks and composition book, if I had to start over again, I probably would use these 5-star one subject books. They also have 5 subjects. And the reason why I would use that is because look at the difference in size. And I'll explain to you why that's important. That's the difference in size, right? On a regular one subject notebook. And here's the difference in size for a composition book. Difference up here and a huge difference on the side. The reason why that's important is because there have been many times that I did not want to go through the rigmarole of cutting the paper and getting it to fit perfectly within these books. If I would have used these Mead 5-star notebooks, all I would have to do is this. Print.
Mommy,
And paste. Or tape. As you can see, it fits perfectly. Okay? It fits perfectly. No cutting required. So again, if I had to start over again, and when we do our middle school notebooking, I am definitely going to transition to these 5-star notebooks and make it the bigger 3 or 5 subject notebooks. But although it's 3 to 5 subjects, it's still going to be for one subject. Okay, I will use it for one subject because it saves so much time to simply print and tape and paste. There is nothing on the edges, no cutting required, just boom and go. Or if you want to tape, you just tape it across the top and you can just flip it over and you have so much room to go ahead and do that. So let me tell you the dimensions of this. This is 11 by 8. So when you see that these books are 8 by 10, although your printing paper is 8 by 10, the paper inside is not the same dimensions. The paper inside is not the same dimensions. However, with this one, the space they provide you inside, the space they provide you is the exact same, is the exact size as the paper that you print. Okay? Oh my gosh, I wish I would have known about this or discovered this a while back. So let me show you the dimensions here. Okay? 11 by 8.5. Perfect for notebooking, guys. Perfect. Okay, it is now 30 minutes. I'm not going to move on to lap booking. I'm going to make this 2-part video, and I'll go into lap booking on another video. Okay? If you have any questions, leave them in the comment box below. Hopefully you found at least one thing of benefit and useful within this video. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. And as always, guys, you be blessed and make it a great day. Check out part 2, and we'll dive into lap booking and the difference between notebooking and lap booking. Thanks.